a pattern bit or bit and a bushing. Which is the best one to use? I'm Ron Paulk, and this is the Smart Wood Shop. If you want to get a set of plans to build a Paulk Smart Bench, a Smart Station, the Smart Wood Shop, or any of the accessories that work with the system, there's a link in the description of this video down below. A pattern bit is a router cutter, a bit that has a bearing on it that is exactly the size of the cut. So if you use a template or a pattern and you put this bearing up against that pattern, then the wood underneath is going to be cut exactly like that pattern. A cutter and a bushing, the cutter is smaller than the bushing, or in this case what would be equivalent to the bearing on a pattern bit. When you size a bit to its bushing properly, it's going to be 1/8 of an inch difference between the two. So a 1/2 inch bit will use a 5/8 bushing. That's outside diameter. And they're made in such that they fit just right. The inside of the bit will not cut the bushing. Have the same pattern that you use for this, then this one is going to be slightly off because the bushing is going to be riding on your pattern and the cutter is going to be inset. Now I said 1/8 of an inch. That's the outside diameter, so that's both sides, 1/16 and 1/16. So if you're running down one straight edge, it's going to be 1/16 of an inch inside of that cut. So when you make your patterns, you have to account for that. So why go through the hassle? Why not just use a pattern bit, make it exactly what you need, and just get that same cut? You don't have to figure anything. The bearing moves up and down with the cutter. When you put it in your router and you plunge in, you have to be very careful to get this bearing to ride on your pattern. The bushing is mounted on the base of the router, and that's a fixed point. So no matter where I put the cutter up and down, the bushing remains in contact with the pattern. The bit and bushing are going to be my choice every single time, except today. The reason I took a break to make this video about these, I am in the process of prototyping the Smart Cart to be cut on a CNC. I want to do a little prototyping before I assemble it. It's done with 18 mil. I have a piece of 12 mil, and I want to use this one cut on CNC as a template for this one test cut. Plus you get to see behind the scenes of what developing a tool, an idea is, this prototyping. When I show you the finished bench or accessory or the wood shop, you're seeing the finished product and probably years and years of evolving and developing before I make it available either in a plan form or in a form for you to order and assemble. I want to make sure that it works. Because this is being used as a pattern, I don't want it moving as I'm routing. So I'm going to put a couple of screws in it. If I were doing furniture grade stuff, then I would be using micro pins. In this case, I don't care if there's a little hole. If this were a piece of furniture, I would have a problem right here where I did somehow, I didn't notice when I was making the cut, it didn't feel like it, but I got off of that bearing just a little bit and I cut into outside of the bounds. On my pattern, I actually cut out there too. So you can see that as careful as I was, how easy that can happen. And that could not happen with the bushing because the bushing would just be already in contact with the pattern before I even turn the router on. In this case, I have to turn the router on and plunge it in and making sure that you're right in the middle. And then once it's bottomed out, lock it down, but the bearing up against it, make the cut, carefully raise it back up. With the bushing, it's always there. I don't have to turn the router off. I can just let it pop up, go to the next one. In this cut here, I could have easily cut it in half the time with the bushing. Taking the time to make a pattern that will work with the bushing in my workflow, it's worth it. I'm going to be documenting the prototyping and build out of this smart cart. And I have a very interesting hardware change that may work out. It's a prototype. I've ordered it. I should have it in the next few days. And I think you're going to find that interesting. Mahalo for hanging out with me in the Smart Wood Shop.